Before I show you how we can restore previous versions of the files, I would like to quickly remind you of the whole process of working with Git. I will tell you about it while doing it, and I will show it to you in the presentation later on. So first, let's create our third chapter of our book, this time in the Explorer. New file, text document, chapter 3, txt. Now let's check our Git status. Oh, now you can see I did a mistake. So it can be useful information for you as well. We have an information now that this is not a Git repository. And as you may see, that's because I'm in my default folder, which is users and Dapit. So what I want to do now is to go back to my Git folder, type cd in my PowerShell, and drag my book folder right here. Press enter. Now we can see we are in our book folder, which is this folder exactly, where we created a new file, which is chapter 3 txt. So now let's check our Git status once again. You can see that we have a new file now in our working directory, which is our workspace. And this file is untracked at the moment. So we can add it to the staging area so that we could add it to our repository with the next commit. So what we can do now is to type git add chapter 3 txt, or we could just type git add space and a dot, which would add every new file or modified file in our workspace to the staging area. The same effect we could get with this flag, which is dash in capital A, or a double dash and a command all. So this way every new file or modified file in our workspace will be added to the staging area, so we could save these changes in our repository with the next commit. So let's add this file. Let's check our Git status once again. And now we can see this file is added to the staging area and waits to be added to the repository with the next commit. In addition to being in this virtual space known as the staging area, its state at this point is referred as being tracked. This means that from the repository's point of view, it is important what will happen to it. This file is tracked, so now if we change anything in it, Git will know about it. Because until we added it to the staging area, this file was untracked. Git knew that such a file was in our project's working directory, but didn't track any changes to it. And we added this file to the staging area in this particular state, while it was still empty. If we modify it now, Git will know about it. So let's open this file in a notepad. Let's put it right here. And let's modify it. Chapter 3 of this book will be about, and that's what it takes for now. Let's save the changes to our file with Ctrl and S on our keyboard. And let's check our Git status once again. Let's clear this console and put git status. Git will tell us that something changed to this file since you added it to the staging area. And if we want to include a new version of this file in the next commit, we have to add it to the staging area once again. But if we now, instead of adding a new version of this file to the staging area, will do a commit, we will add an older empty version of this file to our repository. So let's do a commit. Git commit with the commit message. create a chapter 3 txt. Let's hit enter. And after the commit, our staging area is clear at this point. And we can check it by typing git status. But our file is still modified, as we can see. I just wanted to show you this so you could realize that Git works in many different dimensions and timelines if you want to think that way. Because now in our repository, we have a chapter 3 txt, which is empty. In our workspace, we have a chapter 3 txt file, which is modified and have this sentence in it. And in our staging area, we don't have this file at all. And for Git, one file can exist in many different states and areas at the same time. It's up to us if we want our files to be updated to the latest version. For Git, it doesn't matter. Now I want to show you what will happen if we decide to change the name of a file. Let's say we want our chapter 2 to be chapter 4 for some reason. Let's make it happen. Let's clear our console first. All you have to do is to place git mv, and mv stands for move in this case. The name of the file that we want to change, which is chapter 2 txt, and after space, a name of the file we want this file to be changed to. So in our case, chapter 4 txt. Now let's hit enter. And you can already see in our Explorer, we don't have chapter 2 txt file, and instead we have chapter 4 txt file. Now let's check our Git status. And here we can see we renamed our file from chapter 2 to chapter 4. And this change will be added to the repository with the next commit, because now it's in the staging area. In fact, Git copied the content of chapter 2 file and placed it in the newly created chapter 4 file, deleting chapter 2. As you can see, we are still informed that chapter 3 was modified. Of course, we can now add it in this state to the staging area so that it will be added to the repository with all these changes in the next commit, but we can also undo these changes we have made. And this information you can see right here. Use git restore and a file name to discard changes in working directory. So let's do it. And let's place this double dash right here, because without it, if our project is small, nothing will happen when we forget it. But it's good to know that in some bigger projects, missing this double dash would have resulted in not finding this particular file. So it's good to remember to place it. All right. Chapter 3 txt. This is the file that we want undo the changes to. And now all the changes to this file will be discarded. Because now we have two versions of this file. The one in our repository is an empty file, but the one in our working directory has some text in it. The text that you can see right here. But we know that we did a commit to the repository with this file being still empty. So now if we discard these changes, we will get the same empty file in our working directory, which is our workspace, and our Git repository. So all the changes to this file will be discarded, and we will get the same empty file in our Git repository and our workspace. So let's hit enter. Okay, now I see I did a mistake with the name of our file. You probably saw it already. You can see it right here and right here, that our file is named chapter 3 txt.txt. So now let's try to change it with the git mv command. And we want this file chapter 3 txt.txt to rename it to just chapter 3 txt. Let's hit enter. Now we can see the name of this file has been prepared. Let's close this one in the notepad because this is the older version of it. Let's open it once again. Yeah, it's the same file. So now the name of this file is fixed. So let's clear our console. Hit git status once again. And we are at the same screen, but now we have 2 renamed files and 1 modified. So what we wanted to do is to discard these changes to this file chapter 3 so we could get 1 empty file of chapter 3 txt both in our working directory and our repository. Because as we know, in our repository this file is empty, and in our working directory, which you can see right here, we have some text in it. So let's discard these changes with the command git restore, and let us not forget this double dash. Let's hit enter. Now let's close this file and let's open it again to see if it's empty in our working directory. And as you can see, it is. Let's check it in our git status as well. And we can see we have no more info about this modified file. All we can see is that our 2 files were renamed and are ready to commit to save these changes in our repository. So let's do this commit. Rename chapter 2 txt to chapter 4 txt and rename chapter 3 txt to chapter 3 txt. Let's hit enter. Our commit is done. Let's clear our console. Let's hit git status once again. And here you can see that we have nothing to commit. So everything is updated in our repository and in our workspace. So if you see this screen after putting git status, that means that our repository looks exactly the same as our working directory or our workspace, as you may call it. There are no differences between files and folders in these 2 areas, so we have nothing to do right now, nothing to commit, nothing to update, everything is okay. So now let's try to delete something. Let's delete this introduction file. I'll just press delete on my keyboard, and you can see this file was deleted from my working directory. The same effect we would get if we would place in our console the command rm introduction txt. As you may remember, rm stands for remove. But now let's check our git status, and we can already see that we have 1 deleted file, which is introduction txt. So this file is deleted, but it's only deleted from our working directory, not from our repository. Now, if we want this file to be removed from our repository, we have to add this change to the staging area so that this file could be deleted from our repository in the next commit. If we want to do that, we could use this command right here, git add the name of the file, and then this file introduction txt would be deleted from our repository in the next commit. But let's say that deleting this file was a mistake. We can restore this file from our repository to our working directory with no problem. And you can do it by this command, which you can see right here, which is git restore. So let's do this. Let's don't forget about this double dash. Let's hit enter, and you can see the effect in our Windows Explorer in no time. If we would use rm command in our command line, for example rm introduction txt, the effect will be the same as deleting it in our file explorer. We would only delete it from the working directory, not preparing this change in the staging area to commit. Let me show you this. If we would put command rm introduction txt, the effect would be exactly the same as I showed you before with deleting this file in File Explorer. After deleting it, if we would put git status, we will get this information that this file was only deleted in our working directory and it has to be added to the staging area to be deleted in our repository in the next commit. But we can do something else. If we place git at the beginning of this command, we would delete this file from our working directory and prepare it to be deleted from our repository in the staging area at once. So let's hit enter. You can see that this file is already gone in my working directory. Let's hit git status. And as you can see, before we had it highlighted in red, but now it's highlighted in green. So now everything is ready to do a commit, and then this file would be deleted from our repository as well. Remember that we are getting close to a theory where I will talk about all this, and trust me, it will become understandable to you, even if now it might be a little unclear. Of course, if we want this file to be removed from our repository, we have to do a commit now. And even if we do a commit and delete this file from our repository, we can always restore this file from a previous commit. It's not a problem at all. But now let's try to restore these two things. We want our introduction file to be back in our working directory, and we want undo the changes to the staging area so that our file won't be deleted from the repository after the next commit. And to do that, we have this command, which is git reset. And it's enough for now. We don't need to write anything else here. Git reset will reset all the changes in the staging area. So everything placed to the staging area waiting for the commit will be removed from there. So let's hit enter. You can see this information already here. We have unstaged changes after reset, and it's about introduction txt. Let's clear our console now. Let's check our git status, and you can see that our staging area was reset. So this file, which is deleted from our working directory right now, has to be added to the staging area to be deleted from the repository in the next commit. But we want this file back also in our workspace. And to do that, we have a suggestion right here to use git restore command to discard changes in working directory. So let's do it. Let's hit enter, and you can see the effect in our file explorer right away. It might be a little overwhelming for you at the moment. If that's the case, don't worry too much. I wanted to show you some things so that you know how they look in practice, but I will discuss them in detail in theory in a moment. But before we get to the theory, I would like to show you something else. For example, how Git can ignore certain files, or how to fix the commits. Also, how to clone the repositories. The last thing I would like to show you before the theory is what is stored in the objects directory, which you can see right here. Where we go to Git, we have this objects folder, and I want to show you what's inside these folders because there are many interesting things, interesting files. And now even if you look at it, it might remind you something at this point. So I will show you what do we have here and why it's very important. So let's go on.